Every design project is an act of self-actualization. Think about this. Everything in the world you interact with changes you. Every interaction with a person, with a service, with an object, with a place, with other living beings, every moment of interaction with something that is outside of your body changes you. Simply because you learn something and you grow, regardless of whether this happens consciously or subconsciously. This is inevitable. This is the human experience. Now, as a designer, since a design project is an example of something you interact with, everything you design changes you. And I'm not talking about the fact that every product or service or whatever the outcome of your project is, interact with people, and through that interaction, people change. That also happens, absolutely. But I'm looking at this from the designer's perspective. Every design project changes designers themselves. The design choices that you as a designer make, the design journey you immerse yourself in, change you. Inevitable. That's the human experience. But the design process is a conscious act. Design choices are conscious choices. You make them. And when you design following your inner path, when your design project brings you to realize your full potential and to develop your abilities, when you design feeling that what you're doing speaks of who you are and what you want to bring in the world, there's an act of self-actualization. To what was the well-known sustainability triangle, where the three corners are economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability, I've added a fourth corner and lifted it up to make it connect all three other corners, transforming this 2D sustainability triangle into a 3D sustainability pyramid. The fourth vertex I added is spiritual sustainability, acknowledging not only how design can explicitly accompany people on their own journey of self-discovery, but also the spiritual journey of designers themselves and how what they design impacts their own lives too. All great traditions on this planet, all great teachers and philosophers and thinkers we have had tell us and teach us that we all have an ever-present, meaning-seeking flame inside. Most of us have felt it many times in our lives. Some of you might be feeling it right now. That sense of burning curiosity to figure out who we are and what we are here to do. That drive for inner development, for self-examination, that simple will to figure life out, to finally give ourselves to it completely. Spirituality is not related to religion. Religion can be considered one possible outcome or path of spirituality, but spirituality is also independent from religion. Spirituality is innate to every human being, even though awareness of our spiritual journey can vary. We are talking about spirituality in design because spirituality refers to a wide range of ideas, experiences, practices that are considered life-enhancing and related to humans' well-being. Spirituality is also closely associated with relationships, peace, joy, justice, and a unified sense of body and soul. These are all things we design for. Spirituality and creativity are closely connected. Creativity is pursued through practice, thinking, and reflecting. The act of reflection is often aimed at the search for truth, balance, harmony, and anything related to living our best life possible. For artist David Hockney, all creativity is about love. It has been widely recognized that creativity is the expression of the inner or higher notion of human concern, and that art brings human beings to their spiritual journey of understanding and growth. It is important to mention that the sustainability pyramid can be used as a design tool, a map for making choices and visualize the impact of our choices and our overall product or service. This is the way it is intended in this article. In this sense, we can see the interdependence of our choices towards environmental sustainability with our choices toward social sustainability and spiritual sustainability. Or we can see the causality relationship between our choices towards economic sustainability and spiritual sustainability. The sustainability pyramid can be a tool to check and assess throughout the process interdependence, causality, correlation, and any other relations between any of the vertices. As designers, we are all aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. We all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how at the very top we find, in fact, self-actualization. When we look at this hierarchy from a design perspective, we see opportunities. We can use this to make choices in our design project. We can use this to try and bring people to fulfill one or more of these needs with our products and services. I would like to propose a way of looking at this hierarchy from the perspective of the sustainability pyramid. Let's start by considering the physiological need of having sex and reproduction. Expressing our sexuality is one of our basic needs, as it is a key component of physical health. Let's point out, though, that sexual needs are not shared by all human beings. Maslow also puts reproduction as a physiological need, and this too is not shared by all human beings. But for most people, sensual or sexual expression is a need. As designers, we find indeed plenty of opportunities to design products or services to help people satisfy these basic needs. But when we design with a higher purpose, when our design process is a conscious act of self-actualization, the product or service inevitably allows people, users, to fulfill their higher needs too. Indeed, a product or a service that promotes sexual health or that aids the reproductive process can also fulfill the needs for belonging, intimacy, meaningful relationships, affection, and indeed love. In the English language, we use the term having sex for our physiological needs and making love for our belonging and love needs. An easy example of how addressing one need can also address other needs higher up in this hierarchy. Sex seems to be related to the physiological need, but the moment sex is done with a higher purpose, the moment sex is considered a sacred moment of exchange between two human beings, then we use the term making love. I personally find interesting how we talk about the act of making love, creating love, a concept that is shared in the Italian language with fare l'amore, the Spanish language with hacer el amor, Portuguese, German, and I'm sure many others. From the perspective of the sustainability pyramid, we can argue that the act of addressing a product or service that fulfills people's belongingness and love needs beside their physiological needs is an act of self-actualization. Therefore, since design is a conscious process, since we make our design choices in accordance to our own moral compasses and sense of purpose, design projects that fulfill higher needs for people are, or at least can be, a tool for designers' personal spiritual development. Let's consider now a shelter. If we design for the physiological need, we design products and services that offer protection. We can stop there, nothing wrong with that. But when we design with a higher purpose, when our design process is a conscious act of self-actualization, the product or service we design inevitably allows people, users, to fulfill higher needs. A shelter becomes a part of a collective of shelters, doors open to the community and hosting is allowed, spaces become places for gathering, meaning-making, knowledge sharing, and who knows, in the process, maybe even self-actualization for many of the people interacting with them. From the perspective of the sustainability pyramid, we can argue that the act of consciously designing a product or service with a higher purpose creates a process of self-realization and fulfillment for designers, and therefore can become an act of self-actualization and a milestone in our spiritual journey. Let's consider now food. If we design for the physiological need, we design products and services to feed people. We can design just for this, nothing wrong with it. But when we design with a higher purpose, when our design process is a conscious act of self-actualization, the product or service we design inevitably allows people to fulfill higher needs too. Now food becomes nourishment, cooking a moment to enjoy, and sharing a meal a way to make wonderful memories. I want to mention a company called TS Designs. This company manufactures t-shirts made from organic cotton. Wonderful. But the company also has a food garden close to the manufacturing plant. Workers rotate in taking care of the garden, so they might work on their accounting or distribution or manufacturer duties for, I don't know, maybe let's say 4 days a week, and spend the 5th day in the food garden. All employees share the food that is grown, and they are free to eat the produce there or take it home to their families. The food garden has no direct implication in the economic sustainability of the company. The food is not sold in any way. The function of the food garden is the reason why this company is, in my opinion, exemplary and just wonderful. The food garden, 1, provides a healthy diet for the employees. 2, which means general health and prevention of many possible diseases. 3, the garden gives employees an opportunity to spend time in nature, touching the soil and the vegetables, with the countless benefits that we know this has on our physical and mental health. 4, the garden provides an opportunity for employees to feel part of a community, to work for one another, to share the outcome. 5, the garden introduces to and educates the employees on organic food and food growing. And finally, the garden provides a sense of accountability as well as satisfaction and a sense of achievement. Because we all know the feeling we feel when the first strawberry or the first chili appears on the plant we are caring for. Nothing beats that. This happens because the business owner had a very clear idea of what he wanted to create in this world, what he wanted to do for Earth and for people, his people, and therefore on the type of impact he wanted to have and the legacy he wanted to leave. In my opinion, this person is a visionary, somebody moved by compassion and love. This person is walking his own spiritual journey, and what he designs reflects it. We have seen how we can use the hierarchy of needs as a way of visualizing all the human needs for which we can design. We've seen how when designers are interested in moving beyond basic needs and want to facilitate the fulfillment of higher needs too, they do it because moved by a higher purpose themselves, a push to create impactful change for fellow human beings. And they do it when supported by compassion, joy, and love. We've also seen how this process is inevitably part of designers' personal spiritual journey, a journey of choices toward who they want to be and what impact they want to bring to the world, regardless of whether the designers are aware of it or not. The hierarchy of needs, though, can limit the scope of design itself, closing the possible reach of design to people, only people, users. There are plenty of instances where great design is achieved without the user at the center of the process. Sometimes, for example, Earth or environmental sustainability can be the center of the design project, and social, economic, and maybe even spiritual sustainability follow its lead. For example, there are companies that are making ketchup and preserves using food that otherwise would have been wasted, and a startup that is transforming expired milk into a cotton-like fiber and making t-shirts with it. Simply, food waste is turned into a resource and the economy becomes circular. Here we see economic and environmental sustainability lead the design process. When designing for Earth, we can also see companies committing to restoring biodiversity. Bohana makes popped water lily seeds grown in a farm in Bihar, India. Bohana has a close relationship with farmers and is committed to fair wages, ethical and sustainable harvesting, and collaborative supply chain. Environmental sustainability as probably the starting point, and social sustainability followed. Yolele uses West Africa's oldest grain, cereal grain, fonio, to help alleviate extreme poverty and create economic opportunities for smallholder farming communities to support biodiverse, regenerative, and resilient food systems. Again, environmental sustainability is probably the starting point, and social sustainability followed. The reason why restoring biodiversity is essential is illustrated by the Irish potato family. Potatoes come from Peru and Ecuador, and there are hundreds of kinds of them. Ireland in the 1800s was growing 5 kinds. Those potatoes found a blight, a plant disease, and it affected all of them. If they had been growing 20 or 30 kinds of potatoes, chances are that at least a few of those would have been blight resistant. But they were growing only 5 kinds, and millions of people starved. People starved because of lack of biodiversity. Carol Curry, the founder of Sow True Seed, a company devoted to saving and distributing seeds, explains that today the problem persists with genetically engineered corn, for example. The same corn is being planted time after time and all around the world. We are noticing that there are blights that are happening and they take down the whole crop. So the reason to save your seed and have 100 types of tomato is, should a blight come along or a bug, one of them or 5 of them will be resistant, and that's how Mother Nature works. Another example that I want to mention is that of Appalachian Botanical. This company is restoring and revitalizing land destroyed by coal mining by repurposing it into a lavender farm. We love it because the company gives work to the people who lost their job when the mine closed, and because it put together 2 things that needed each other: acres of abandoned, blown up, deprived soil with a plant that happens to love poor soil, lavender. Lavender also happens to reduce toxic heavy metals from the soil, turning desolation and destruction into life and beauty. Companies like this bring back nature, balance, and cleanliness. where other companies have left pollution and ugliness. Here, I can't assume what was the starting point of this project and business, but we can say that in its completion, environmental sustainability and social sustainability are at its core. Two things to consider here. Firstly, this is an example of environmental sustainability that goes beyond using recyclable material, beyond using recycled materials, beyond upcycling and repurposing, and towards regeneration. Regenerative design happens when not only we reduce our impact on the planet, but we actually bring back beauty, nature, nourishment, balance, and life where we previously brought destruction and pollution. Secondly, this is to me another example of a company that is the result of someone who knows what type of impact they want to have on the world and what they want to do for Earth and for their community. This company follows the principles of someone whose spiritual journey towards compassion is well on its way, whether they're aware of it or not. In conclusion, we can say that there is a parallelism between designing for people's higher needs and designers' higher purpose applied to the design project. We can design for people to become aware of their own spiritual journey, and we can design for people who are already aware of it, but we should also design being aware of our own spiritual journey, because our projects are infused with our own essence, and our projects teach us and change us. Awareness of how this happens and awareness of the spiritual consequences of our design choices is simply a faster path for spiritual development. I call this designing-centered design, a design process where the act of designing and its impact on designers themselves is the center of the design process. My intent is to remark how there is no difference between designing for others and designing for ourselves. First, because every improvement we bring to people's life, we bring to ours. And secondly, because the act of designing itself, even when designing for others, is a process entirely ours, completely intimate, and intrinsically connected to our life journey and spiritual development. Which brings me to food, the reason why I completely and utterly love this discipline, where designing happens for food and eating. Food is an act of love. Cooking, making food for someone else, is giving a part of ourselves. Eating food with someone else is one of the strongest bonding moments between humans, some say as much as intercourse. And this power that food has, more than any other material we could design with, is the reason why we are here right now, me writing this article and you reading it. We are here because we feel the power that food has to change lives, to bring smiles, to better society, and we want to use it to bring our light into the world, to follow that call that I'm sure you too feel, to make this world a little better than we found it. If you hear the truth in these words, or if you feel it on your skin and in your stomach, it's because whether you know it or not, you are already applying spirituality to design. I challenge you to do it consciously, to use designing-centered design to bring spirituality to every design choice in your future projects. Because the real way we make this world brighter is by getting brighter ourselves. Thank you.